the outset, I'd like to welcome to you viewers. If we look at the constitution of the South Korea, the Article 72 says that the parliament can null or rather can overturn the martial law, and now it's up to the President Sunko and the Ministry of Defense. In fact, media platform is talking now that the troops started to withdraw, and therefore they can to some sort of sort out the crisis through the voting of the General Assembly against the martial law. And we should decide that the governing party and the opposition that has more seats of the parliament have agreed upon that this martial law shouldn't last. Following 150 minutes of the martial law, the parliament had convened and 190 votes voted in favor of overturning the martial law decree.
Right, just to bring people up to date, because we were saying that troops have been withdrawing after lawmakers voted to block the president's martial law decree. Before, in Seoul, police buses had already begun to move in to block or barricade the entrance to the parliament building, as we have been seeing by the local broadcasts. Now, how significant is all this political turmoil right now in South Korea, Doctor? Because the president has been facing problems. He has been battling a series of opposition bills and motions which had sought to undermine his rule, according to many political observers. And since losing majority in the National Assembly earlier this year, perhaps he has not been able to do what he intends to do politically and also legally.
Go back to the backgrounds a few months in the past. In the early April, the opposition had the majority in the National Assembly, and the governing party was defeated. And hence, we should also mention the disagreement by the president and between the opposition as well as between the governing party. Initially, if we talk about the disagreement between the president and the opposition, we will find that the First Lady has several problems related to the interventions of local elections, and that has a relation with the governing party that was or intervened in nominees of the parliamentary elections. On the other side, there was a narrative saying that using some of the poll centers for the president to gain the votes during the elections of 2020, that to increase his popularity, at least during the parliamentary elections. From the other side, on the level of the opposition, to find that there's a case or reports talking about the manipulating and some names in the stock exchange that led to open investigations, never resulted anything, and the president of South Korea has shown in the press conference previously apologizing the crisis made by his wife. But in the meantime, that saying that facing the fabricating news at the end of the past November, we're talking about the last week, the opposition was intended to isolate to or to change three of the public prosecutors that they were trying because of following the investigations with the First Lady of these problems and the opposition intended to present a draft to dismiss the president of the Qnews and an expectation that he failed to provide documentations related to transfer of the headquarters, the Blue Office, to another headquarter. Therefore, we found that there is a disagreement between the opposition and the president, and also we see a disagreement between the president and the president of the governing party earlier this year, and this disagreement
And he
was
also
ended.
the leader of Yon's own party has called the declaration of martial law as a wrong move, and he said that he's going to block it. Obviously, now, what do you think is going to happen if or when perhaps the parliament overrules the martial law? Because the broadcast obviously was very late at night. People were perhaps they were home. Some of them perhaps were sleeping. So it's not really affecting the social or economic life yet. What do you think is going to happen tomorrow morning in South Korea after all this?
Supposedly, according to the law or the constitution, that the Speaker of the National Assembly that issued this request, and it's been presented before the President and the Ministry of Defense, and supposedly according to the Constitution, that the martial law should be lifted based on the request of the Parliament.
But constitutionally, the president does have a veto vote, doesn't he? Does it really work in this situation?
I think regarding this matter, we are going to wait and see what the president would do. But let me reaffirm upon the indications. If the government and the opposition have agreed, despite their political disagreement, that the martial law should be lifted, and so that what the president did was wrong, that will indicate that South Korea affirms the freedoms and that need to be prevailed, and the democratic transmission since 1980, which was the last mobilizations and that witnessed some of the protests between the people and the police during the demonstration in 2017, and there is a consensus within the South Korean community that the martial law shouldn't be implied upon them. In history, in 1980, that is still present in the memory of the people, and it's sort of a great controversy, but a great consensus within the society that there's no return of that form of rules.
All right. Let's talk more about the president's declaration, or the unannounced address broadcast live earlier today. He claimed that he would eradicate shameless pro-North Korean anti-state forces. He also said that he had no choice but to resort to such a measure to safeguard the free and constitutional order, and he stated that the opposition party had taken the parliamentary process as a hostage, throwing the country into crisis. What do you think of his speech and his reasons behind the martial law measures?
As I aforementioned in the beginning, that there's an agreement in a few months between the president and the opposition that had been ignited in the last July, and there was a hearing inside the National Assembly to dismiss the president himself, and the accusation of the liberals or the within the South Korea, that this trend is more tolerant to work with the North Korea, as it is the pro-North Korea, to explain in more depth Democrat presidents in different terms, such as Kim Il-sung and Myung Yong, had in 1998 and 2002 and 2007, and the previous president have had an agenda that has a more tolerance with North Korea. Therefore, the accusations from the far right wing, as they are anti-North Korea policies that would reflect the state of the political polarizations during that time.